couple of caveats before I start. People who know me well will probably be a little aghast that I'm actually using slides. Slides are not my forte, but I'm doing this mostly to keep myself on track. This is my first public doing of this kind of presentation, so particularly on dynamic KML. I've been working with it for a while, but I just wanted to organize my thoughts.
Is there a link we can look at the slides on?
Not yet. No, there will be a link available. There's actually only like 7 slides. Most of this is going to be, I'm going to be showing you, this is what this actually looks like in Google Earth and 1 or 2 on maps. And then showing you like the actual creation code. So this is sort of an exploration. Thank you all for coming. And I should also say at the end we have a guest speaker. Brian Hamlin's going to be talking a little bit about PostGIS. So that will start then. Oh, I should introduce myself. I am Mano Marks, and my job is to do developer support for KML. That means I do things like this, and also answer people's questions and stuff. So, any questions before we get started? Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and jump in then. This is sort of, I want to make, before I start on talking about dynamic KML, I want to talk a little bit in defense of static files. So I'm going to be talking today about using network links to access dynamically generated KML. That is not the KML that is mostly generated on the fly for you, probably from a database or from a script. But I want to talk a minute about just using plain static KML files. One of the joys of KML is that you can write really fairly robust applications using just plain static KML sitting on your server, much like you can with HTML. It's easy to index. You don't need coding other than KML coding. It tends to be very easily human readable, and you can hand edit or generate it. So that being said, let me jump into the drawbacks of static files. Often static files will require more bandwidth unless you fairly carefully construct them. That's because you can't judge on the fly what information somebody wants. You have to give them pretty much everything. That makes them, they're also a little harder to maintain. That means if you have links between files, you have to sort of remember which thing links to which thing. If you are doing something like generating static files out of a database, or even just doing them by hand, and somebody tries to access them, you might have a possibility of a collision, which means for a brief moment your file may not be available. If somebody points a network link to a static file, which people often do, and you're writing and they're accessing it every 4 seconds, the possibility of a collision is actually pretty high. So, and also they can't really respond to queries. So that's why we talk about dynamic KML generation. Okay, so I want to talk for a moment about network links. I'm going to actually show you what it looks like in the KML in a minute. Network link is a way to access a resource other than the file itself. So it's a KML file type. So the network link can access either a static file, links to some sort of query that queries a database, some sort of script that queries a database, or one way you often use it is in a region-based network link. So this is something that I'll talk about briefly, probably towards the end, but that would be a whole presentation for another day. So at this point, what I'm going to focus mainly on are the ways that you can embed parameters in your network links that can talk to your script and generate KML based on what those parameters are. Okay. Okay. Before I go on with the slides, let me just show you what a couple of show you a little bit what I'm talking about. Okay. This is a basic network link file. You have your standard KML declaration. You have a network link element, which has a name, pizzas. Tells you whether it's open, and it has a link with an href. So this tells you what resource particularly you're looking at. This is a script that sits on my on a server that's just hosted on this machine. This is based on a series of articles that Pamela and I did on using PHP to generate maps in KML. And what this does is it sends off to this script here, which accesses a MySQL database and then generates a KML document from it. I will talk in a little bit more in detail about how this actually works, but let me show it to you. So this is a random selection of pizza locations in North America. Pamela is fairly obsessed with pizza, so most of our demos have something to do with pizza. This is generated dynamically out of a database, but there is no querying, there's no specific querying done. This basically says, give me all records, turn them into KML, and produce a result. Let me show you a little bit what that table actually looks like. Oh, and by the way, you get the address and, of course, a link to the directions. This is my MySQL database. This is the table that it queries. So basically, each record has an ID, a name, an address, a latitude, a longitude, and a type. I've actually co-opted type in this database to be state, the state that it is in the United States, just so that I can show you a slightly different version, which I think I will do right now. My screen is a little bit more washed out at this small resolution that I'm used to. So if you find me peering in, that's what I'm doing. Okay, so what I did here in this is I put in. Actually, let me show you this. Okay, so this is the network link. The href gets a little that wrapped around there, but this is the key portion here. I'll probably talk a little bit more about this later, but this HTTP query basically appends a name-value pair to the query that gets sent to the server. The script loads localhost PHP SQL gen KML state.php question mark state equals GA. So we always do California, so I thought I would choose Georgia this time. The pizza's not as good in Georgia, according to Pamela. I'll be sure that gets out on YouTube.
Great chicken.
Let me show you. This is what all the pizzas we have in our database in the country, all the pizza places, looks like in here. Very basic points and latitude, longitude. I'm going to take that out so it doesn't confuse with the other one, and then open up Pizza 2. And you'll see, just in Georgia. So, yes?
Is that query, HTTP query, only in KML 2.2?
No, it was in 2.1 as well. Now you got me thinking. Yes, that was in 2.1 as well. Nods from the other KML people. That was a year ago. Okay. So and I did something very simple to capture the results of that in my PHP script. So you see here, I just check the get and this always gets appended as this is always a get, by the way. The Google Earth will always submit a get to a server, the URL. So get looks for the parameter state. If for some reason the state is not appended, it defaults to California. So of course we get back to California pizza. But otherwise it takes the value of the state parameter. And then later I just add it into my SQL query down here. So you see there, I just append that on. So I'm aware that probably not everybody here is a PHP coder. These are very simple operations, pretty basic to any scripting languages or any other, like more robust like Java or whatever your applications are running in. And certainly I can help you with your own particular languages how to do this if you have questions later. But basically pretty easy. If you got a database, you query, you append some where condition in MySQL, and you get back your results. Okay, so that's using HTTP Query, which allows you to put in your own custom parameters. But the great thing about KML is it comes with a whole set of default parameters. So if you go to the KML documentation and go under link and go down to HTTP Query, these are the 4 default parameters you can embed into HTTP Query. Client version, KML version, client name, and language. That's the language that the person is using in their Google Earth. By the way, I'm kind of going through this. If there's any questions, feel free to ask as I'm going along. Okay. So how do you capture these? These are things you don't hard code into the network link. You just say, give me some information about the environment that the person is using. Okay, so I'm going to show you my language picker KML. So this is a KML that just queries a very simple query to say what language is the person using and to return a result based on what language the Google Earth client that they're using actually is set to. So you'll see here I have this on running on my server, which I use for these sort of purposes. I have the HTTP query, lang equals, and then you see this bracket language. That's how you do the code that's how you encode it in your HTTP query. Then you have the semicolon between your different parameters, and you have client name. Now client name is the name of the client. It's what is using this. In this case, you'll see that I am using Google Earth Plus. You can see that in the far upper left corner, right there. And that's what will be returned to my script. Now, you can do some interesting things with this. Maps supports using network links in KML files. So if you load a KML file, it's got a network link, it will use this, but it doesn't support HTTP query. So it doesn't know to send the client name with you. So I'll just go over it. So if you load it into maps, it'll send nothing to the script, and the script has to know that, oh, if I have nothing, then this is probably a maps query. So I'll just do whatever my default behavior is. So that's a clever way to use the absence of something to know what you're actually pinging. Okay, so let me show you how that works. This is my lang picker PHP. So here you've got lang, I get the lang, and then I get the client name. And I've only coded in 2 languages here, French and everything else, which is English. I do lang equals fr, description string. This is English. Oh, hello. I had that one mixed over.
English people,
yes. Let's do this.
French. The rest of the world gets French.
Right. The rest of the world gets French. Oh, okay. I see what I did. This is not my. This is not the full version. So, client name equals this, and then if I put in if client name is not equal to this, then client name equals n.
Line equals n. Lang equals n.
Um,
Lang equals
well, my val, no, my, oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Then lang equals n. Okay.
right. Okay.
Thank you.
Give semicolons on lines 3, 8, and 12.
3, 8. Yeah. I think I opened up an old version of my script, so let's hope that this actually works. I think actually I have the working version on my server. So let's get rid of the pizzas. Open up language picker, which actually does have the working version. So here I have just Google, which in my opinion is the best place to work in the world. And then if I change my language to French, and then restart Google Earth. Oops.
Okay, so the French.
And then restart my application. It's going to do it on its own. I need to load it. Okay. So some of you will never have seen Google Earth in French, so now you get to.
I'm browsing on my maps in Greek this week.
Greek, usually it's German.
Yeah, I know. Going for a little variety.
All right.
I know, but it's really pretty. It's like.
So you can see everything here is in French. And if I click on this, I'm getting the wrong, I get the wrong result. Okay. All right, my apologies. I mixed that one up. I'll get that working and show it to you later. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So the other two that you can do are KML versions. So what version of the KML file you've got, and then the client version. The client version number is actually something that's really useful. You can tell what versions people are using. If they're using 4.2, then you know you can use features that are only available in 4.2. If they're using 4.1, then you know not to put in a photo overlay or extended data or something like that. That might conflict with or might not give them the experience that they're looking for. And if the client name or client version is absent, then you can know that maybe to give them a maps version. So. Okay. So let me go on. Any questions so far?
Notice you said use network connection with mapping. You can't. You say you just can use a network connection, but I see the HTTP connection.
You can use network. You can use a network link in a maps API. In a maps API, in a KML file that's loaded by the maps API.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Yes, but it will not recognize the HTTP query
At all.
element, so it won't broadcast the whatever parameters that you put in there. Yeah. So
that's if it's being run inside Earth, right?
no, that's on the
It's a
maps.
browser.
That's on the maps
On the browser.
version. If you've got a KML file sitting on a maps
Okay.
yeah, that you're
Is there
using
any
on maps.
workarounds people for that?
Um,
Heard anything? Anybody? Okay.
not directly for the KML itself. If you parse the KML
And generate it out
and then
as a
generate
map.
it out, yeah. So then you could do that.
I would think the smart thing to do would be, because anybody can technically be a geo browser of KML, right? But you never know exactly
Right.
if they're going to support HTTP query or what they're going to send. So the smart thing to do might be just to see, okay, was anything sent to me? If not, here's the basics of what I'd want
Right.
to show to the viewer.
Yes, that's right.
Cool.
You use other
Yeah.
things to detect what.
Yeah, you could
might
actually
need.
do.
Right.
what-
So if you were wanting to do the language, you could detect the language that the browser is in and then select the correct KML file.
Right.
Yeah, that stuff will be already restructured. That's good to know. Actually, that's actually interesting. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, 'cause there's another-
Okay. So let me take a look at. Well, I want to take a look at this one. This is my current favorite. It's actually been my favorite for about 6 months. This is querying Google Base to return personal ads that are geolocated. So that's the basics. Google Base is a place. Basically, it's an API for us. You can upload any arbitrary XML files to Google Base within certain structures, and then code them up in certain ways with types and geolocations and some standard things. It's with Google Data API uses that set of that standard of APIs, and it also supports some specific Google-based queries. One of which is give me everything within, say, 3 miles of this particular location. Let me show you briefly what that query actually looks like. Oh, I missed it.
Just search for it.
Yeah.
Days or a couple days.
Yeah.
There you
There you go. Okay. So this is what it looks like. This is your base URL here, google.com base feed snippets, BQ base query, and then you tell it what type, and then I'm telling it what location. There's a bunch of other parameters that you can search on as well, but I chose to do this way. And let me then show you what the KML file looks like. I don't have that one up, so let's create one. I'm actually going to restart this in English so that the people in the room can read my application.
No.
Okay. So, so this is going to use something which we call ViewBase Refresh. Basically, what I'm going to do is take the bounding box of what's visible on the screen and query Google Base using the center of that. So we have default, if you construct a network link and you set the type of refresh to on stop, then you're going to send along with your URL, you're going to send the bounding box. That is the north, south, east, and west corners of the box to whatever the server is, and then the server can then parse it, figure out pretty easily what the center point of that is, and then make a Google Base query that says, give me everything within X number of miles. So add a network link. This is the really exciting part for people at home. And I guess for all of you as well. This is the part where people on YouTube are skimming forward. So then you set the refresh time. This is when you're constructing it here. Sorry, I did that too fast. After camera stops.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
that's at the end. Your URL.
Okay. Thank you. And not when region in view, after camera stops. It's still going to fail because I asked to put in a couple of HTTP parameters as well. So I'm going to go ahead and create this. Now Google Earth will default to at this point, defaults to a link element. I'm going to call this defaults to a URL element, which is an older KML 2.0 version. I'm going to do a link. And let me just make sure that I am not asking for any other. Yes, I also I'm asking for the distance. Okay.
Should you have the question mark at the end of your row?
No, Earth adds that in automatically. So then I'm going to save this as personals.kml. Delete that out. And open this up. And hopefully I will have done everything right. Nope. Sorry, what was the error that gave? Server error. Okay. So let me see. I can pull up my error log and see that I've got some invalid syntax. Okay. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take these off. Well, I'm not worried about that. And do this. Okay. Now let's try that again. There we go. Okay. So as I zoom in close, so Google Base occasionally takes a little while to actually do this query because it's sorting through quite a bit of information. So what happens, Google Base is, it's not so much that, say that you see personal ads.
Unedited.
Right, unedited, right. So just as a point of information, what happens is a bunch of the personals ad servers will upload their data to Google Base so that it is more easily searchable by Google. They're trying to find every way possible to get this information in there, which then allows us to gather that information out. So I'm going to scroll her picture off, but you'll see there's a bunch of data points here. Add height, hobbies, education, ID, ethnicity, occupation, content, all these sort of things. So Google Base, said it uses a Google Data API, which is based on the Atom publishing protocol. So based on that, I can assume that there's going to be a few elements in there, like title and a link element. And so I can grab those, but most of these elements actually change depending on what the provider of the service is puts into Google Base. So not everything is necessarily going to have marital status. It might have relationship status, or it might have some other element. So what I did was I constructed a script that would dynamically query, pull all the data, and then just not care. It doesn't really care what the whether this is marital status or relationship status, whether this is children is, the value of children is none or 0. I'm just querying it to get the values for display purposes. So it goes through every element, says, okay, what's the name of the element and what's the value? And then it creates a another entry in the HTML table that makes up the description balloon. So I'm hoping to actually publish this as an article fairly soon. So hopefully soon you will be able to browse the personal ads and find relationships in Google Earth, which is of course the objective.
Is it already running on my server as well? Am I
Is
gonna
it?
be browsing?
I don't know. Is it? Do you have Python running on your server?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you make me store all your scripts.
Oh yeah, I make a source on my scripts. Well, so so hopefully it will be up. Although our PR people might make me change this to I don't know, auto stores or something more less potentially scandalous. But one thing to note is once the original query is done and then I stop the browser, then within 4 seconds, which is the default value for how often it will refresh, it queries again. So you can see there it's querying and thinking about it and trying to see what's in Daly City and Brisbane. So lest you're a little afraid that this is revealing the addresses of people in personal ads, it's not. This is entirely based on their zip code, and then I just geocode the zip code using the Maps API geocoder. So actually, if I were to click on, oh, that one's not a good example. If I were to, some of these, oh, this is interesting. These all seem to be single results. It's in the middle of refreshing the query, so I I didn't. I think I scared it a little bit. So personal ads in San Francisco can be a little scary sometimes. I don't know if maybe we'll edit that out of the video. Okay. You gotta love demos. Okay, so anyway, I don't need to open that up again, but the point being that it does it by zip code. So if I clicked on a group of them, they would of course do the typical what Earth does, the star pattern of generating different points. Okay, any questions so far? Yes.
When you send that query, the 4 corners of the bounding box are sent also?
So the way I do it in my code actually is I just calculate what the center point is, and using some code that I stole from our sample code, basically. Basically just calculate the rough, the central point of the bounding box, and then say, give me everything within, in this case, 10 miles of this location. The base, since I actually wrote this original query, base has added bounding box support, so you can send it a bounding box and say, these are the 4 corners, and then give me everything that's in there.
But Earth itself is sending the VBox parameter.
Right, so Earth sends, so let me show you what this looks like a little bit more. Earth sends by default, when you select a ViewBase Refresh, it'll add this parameter here. So bbox equals bbox west, bbox south, east, and north. So then you know that you can parse the bbox parameter and get those values out of it. It sends those by default. You can also embed them in view format. So let me just show you. This element view format gives you more things that are strictly view-based. So anytime you set the view refresh mode to on stop, it will send what's in the view format element unless you don't specify a view format element, in which case it will just send the bounding box.
Is this just in Earth?
This is just, no, actually no, not anymore. It now works in Maps.
It does.
Yeah, it has for a few months now.
Yeah, like the Panoramio KML is a good example, and also I think we have a YouTube KML that's also doing it.
Really?
I believe so.
That would be really cool. I have not seen that one. So These are some of the additional parameters that you can use. Not all of these, I think, are necessarily supported by maps because many of them are not actually even relevant to it. So we have look at, which gives you the current look at of the point that's being viewed, the look at range, the tilt and the heading, all the look at information, the camera information, the horizontal and vertical fields of view, and whether or not terrain is enabled, and the horizontal pixels and vertical pixels. So you can make decisions based on that, what to return back to Google Earth. So yes, when it was added to maps, I was very excited because that gives you a lot more power.
Yeah, it'll allow me to work around that problem with too many nodes.
Yes,
in maps.
exactly.
Although you guys should just support more nodes.
Thank you for that. I'm going to come back to this one. Actually, no, I'm going to come back to this one in a second. But let me talk a little bit. I haven't talked a lot actually about why you would want to do this. I mentioned it briefly at the beginning, but the major reason, so a couple of major reasons that you want to support using dynamic KML creation. One of the most important is to restrict the amount of data that goes down the pipe, basically. It takes a lot of bandwidth to load really huge KML files, so if you can restrict it to a much smaller view, then you can restrict the number of points that are displayed, particularly if you're very geographically dispersed in your data. So that's one. Another is just to show things to people that are interesting to what they're actually looking at. People may not want to see, if you load a lot and a ton appears in the left pane, then it can be kind of confusing, and how do you sort through all of that? Another is to allow for sort of more up-to-the-minute kind of data. So you can generate, if you're generating out of a database that's collecting information continually, then you can generate something for somebody. Oh, in the last 4 seconds, I have a new point. Something new has shown up in Google. There's a new personal ads in Google Base, or oh, you can jump on that person in 4 seconds, then you might get there before anybody else. Okay, I didn't mean it quite that way, but Yes, exactly. If a new laptop becomes available, or a new auto dealership opens. Or whatever your data is. So for instance, if you're using this for emergency management, if there's a fire and there's new information, a new report, then that can show up very quickly in using a network link. Whereas if you're writing a static file, somebody's periodically writing a static file and sending them out to people and they're opening them up, that's just not a great user experience. Yes.
Other than these parameters on the screen right now, are there any other parameters that are supported? And is there any way to get custom parameters or variable parameter names?
So you can, using HTTP Query, you can hard code some parameters. Yes, that's right. You can use a cookie. So there is oops, went too far there. There's the cookie element, which allows you to save a certain amount, some state, basically, within the client. So you could, for instance, somebody could download a KML file that's got a particular cookie that the network link file itself could be dynamically generated. You could add a cookie, and then when you query, it can give you data that's only relevant to you. So that's one way to do that. So that's actually, I think, the only other really big way to do dynamic parameters. Yes.
There's no UI in the interface for changing the HTTP query parameters, right?
That's correct. Or or cookie or any of these. Yes, that's right. There is nothing.
So what happens in maps when you use this? I mean, when you change your your view, it'll refresh that left navigation area with the new data based on the new view?
Yes. Yeah, given the amount of time that if you're moving constantly through it, it's not going to be constantly refreshing it.
Right.
Depends on what that time interval is.
Right.
Yeah. View refresh time.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, let me talk a little bit about the actual code. So, yeah. KML through scripting. There's two basic ways to generate KML using a scripting language. And by this I mean just the actual KML itself, not like how you gather the data, because there's many ways to do that, querying your databases. One is to produce one really big string and push it out, or in PHP you echo it. Let me show you an example of doing that. In langpicker.php, you'll see here that I do echo lang using a here doc, and then this long string. And in the middle here, I put in this little thing that says, oh, and put the description string in there. And then, and that's it. And then you terminate the here doc here, the lang. So that's one way of doing it. There's, in every language you can do, to do these various things, long strings. So it's easy to program this way. I think one of the things that we first learn is string manipulation in most programming. But there's a number of drawbacks. It's a lot harder to maintain. You have to go back and figure things out. Strings tend to be resource intensive, but like I said, it is easier to code. DOM manipulation is the other way to do this. Now, DOM manipulation is pretty hard. I've been doing DOM stuff for a few years now, and I still have to go back and look up what exactly did I need to do? How exactly did I need to do this? And let me show you a little bit what that looks like. Let me see if I can find the root of this. Here, I'm going to make this smaller so I can. Okay. So this is in Python. Where did you go? All right. So you have to create each element. You have to create the document, then create each element. You can see how long ago I did this. I did this in KML 2.1. This is my favorite part, actually, of DOM. You create an element in a namespace. And as far as the DOM is concerned, that element then remains in the namespace. But if you serialize it, if you print it out, there's no XML-NS equals. There's no namespace in that element. You have to then go ahead and set the attribute again so that is there. And so this is one of my two least favorite parts of DOM. Much as I like DOM manipulation. So then you have to you create the element, you set the attribute, then you have to go in and append the attribute to an element. So in this case, I'm appending the actual KML element. Can't see what I'm gesturing at on my screen. So here I create the element, I set the attribute, and then I append the child element to the KML. And then I have to go through and create the next element and the next. And KML is kind of verbose. It's long. I have to do every single piece of that. And it works, but it can be a lot of effort, particularly if you have text nodes. So when you actually have to put values in, I create a helper class, a function rather, for me that just does that. That creates the element with the text node in it. So I don't have to create the text node, create the element, and then append the text node to the element, and then append the element to the whatever the parent element is. So you'll see that this can be rather tedious. This whole piece of it up to here is simply creating a very basic style and the document element of the KML. And then what I do is I I query personals for the, query for the personals, and then I basically parse through each entry and create another place mark, which means for every element I have to create all the children and all the values. So DOM manipulation, to me, I'm sort of an XML head. To me, it makes a lot of sense, but it's also, you know, I realize a lot of work. And once you get a very large document, then you start chewing up system resources as well. So that's that can be a lot of fun. The nice thing is almost every language these days provides helper classes to do this. And because DOM manipulation is standardized, that means that you know pretty much, if you know how to do it in one language, it's pretty easy to do it. And you know, from Python to PHP, you can almost just do a copy paste, and then then you have to futz with the syntax. So, any questions? Okay, I've been going. Yes.
Any things that you have trouble with that are in this set that really didn't work well, or any specific ways you tried to serialize data or syndicate data that just was a problem, or any specific approaches in there generally that were problems?
Is there anything generally that I have trouble
some
with?
Of this data, like even pushing it out in REST, because I've got to take it out of a database, generate on the fly map the parameters that are time-based, location-based, and keyword-based. Mm-hmm. Then I've got to let it sit there and then get responses and rankings back in to a general main database store from local apps.
Okay.
That's one little data store. So if you had any issues about pushing this out to like gears or budgets, any issues around parsing the data, because it's XML, I can set it easily.
Yeah, no, I haven't had any trouble with it. And because it's XML and almost, everybody has tools to deal with XML, it's pretty easy to, you can serialize it either
Any
as
non-standard responses.
Right. I have not run into anything really. My two big issues with DOM manipulation are the namespace that you have to go back and set the actual attribute, which, if you think about it, actually makes sense, but it's still kind of a pain. And moving a node from one document to another, which requires you to import the node and then append it again. So you have to import the node, but you're essentially creating a copy of the node and then pushing it in.
Versioning just like you use for like versions of the software, and just be able to update them. It depends on the usage you're using that for. If it's data where the updates are always going to be more fresh and better than the old ones, that's okay. If it's one you got an error check back where you have an update and you want to go back and check it, okay, is it okay against the general data? It just depends on your rules for that data. How you approach
That's
that.
true, but that's not exactly the problem of importing nodes from different documents. So say somebody sends you another document and you want only a portion of that to move into your document.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean,
You
there's
just have to add another area to say this is this type of data which can be loaded in here. Ooh, that's ugly.
yes, it can be ugly, particularly if namespaces are involved.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So it's a complex issue. DOM is very fun to deal with.
You gotta have it well scoped though, because if you don't, that could get really fun. Very squirrely. Yeah.
Okay. So any questions so far? Yes.
What about security? For example, if one person you wanted to show them some certain information in a dynamic KML, but another user you wanted to show them something different because maybe they don't have the same access abilities.
Right. That's a really good point.
So
so cookie is one way to do that.
Okay.
But it was really simple
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah.
What would you do with HTML? Because
Yes,
it's exactly,
exactly.
the same problem.
Yeah.
By logging
Well,
in
there
password,
might be
yeah,
like
You're-
digest authentication or something, so a particular user would have to put in their username and password before
Yeah.
the server returns them.
So any reasonable
Right.
client implementation
Right.
has to support HTTPS
Right.
or another authentication.
So
Yeah.
it does that?
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be the way.
Yeah. Yeah, because
Okay, thanks.
you're only gonna let them access to certain data, and you have it in the data set that this data is for this person by login password. That's how
So-
you do that generally.
Right. So the answer is just you do it through HTTPS.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I have one more sort of demo to show you somebody actually using this in the wild. So remember, this series is designed in part to highlight the things that people don't use very often in the APIs that we have. So I'm hoping that one of the results is a lot of people will then go out now and do more dynamic KML generation. I wanted to show you something that the Sloan Digital Sky Survey uses. So let me pull this up. This is actually ViewBase Refresh in Sky, the first one that I saw of it. So I load this, of course it switches to Sky because that's what it is. What this does is it loads the top 100 brightest points that are available within your viewport. So here is, okay. So this one is apparently giving me some problems, but if you don't mind risking a little bit of crashing, go out and take a look at the SDSS, Sloan Digital Sky Survey KML. It's quite nice and very simple. Okay, Brian, you were going to do a little presentation as well.
Okay, testifier number 1. All right, so let's see. That's coming up here. Let's turn that off for a second. Okay, I always say dessert first, so let's go right to some graphics. Let's turn that one off for a second. Okay, and that would be yes. Okay, so what are we looking at? Okay, there is a Postgres PostGIS database running on this machine, and there is a network link file, and it's querying 4, 5, 6 tables, and that's what's in the tables. So just raw, unedited, a little bit of middleware. Let's see. Now, what does that look like in KML? Okay, just very much along the lines of what we were just looking at. Localhost all. So it's just a series of network links. And all it's doing is it's saying localhost, CGI, feature server, CGI. So how many people have heard of feature server? Okay, couple. All right, it's just a very small, lightweight piece of Python that sits in between a data source and a RESTful URL. And in this case, all I did was I just basically went down the list of all of my tables in my Postgres here. And I just put a URL in, and it happens to generate KML in this case. And so we're just saying, give me everything in that table. And Google Earth is going to give me the bounding box, so it's going to have the bbox query already. Very, very fast and simple. This is like your super shortcut to seeing what's in Postgres. And there's the evidence before your eyes. California counties, those are full-on detailed counties, so it gets a little heavy for my little laptop here. Okay, so slides. Here we go. I'm hacking geospatially enabled data. I put lots of data into Postgres, PostGIS. But how do I view it? GIS applications. Not. Okay. GIS is famously difficult. You get all kinds of really interesting corner cases. If you're a graduate student in mathematics, you will like GIS. Okay. GIS is famously difficult. Lots of ways to go wrong. the NAD27 projection. Oh yeah, I know all about that. What? Okay, so this is from a site called spatialreference.org, by the way. Highly recommended. Okay, so my quick hack. Generate some KML from Postgres, push it into a viewer. Well, this is my wishful thinking slide. I won't go into details, but that's where we're going. Not quite there yet. Okay, so quick hack, an example via Google Maps. Broken link. Oh well, next. What is GDAL Ogre? Okay, some of you may have heard of GDAL and Ogre. How many people have heard of GDAL and Ogre? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Well, it turns out that last summer, Google's Summer of Code, they sponsored an enterprising student to enhance the KML driver for Ogre. And I actually helped on that project. You can look at OSGeo. Let's see. This is actually in their track project server there. So what is GDAL? GDAL is a project of translation libraries for raster and vector data formats. In this case, GDAL refers to both GDAL and Ogre. It's also a translator library for raster geospatial data formats in particular. It's an underlying engine. It uses MIT license. It is a very, very interesting project.
What do they stand for?
GDAL? I think it used to stand for something, and now it's just GDAL. Okay.
Spatial data abstraction.
KML used to stand for something.
Like you said. Okay, so the project handles both rasters and vector. But today we're only going to talk about the vector side. Okay, lots of data sources. This is essentially, GDAL Ogre is essentially the hub of a wheel. It's like the Swiss Army knife. You can hook up tons and tons and tons of data sources. Data sources go in, they get merged to sort of massaged to a common format, and then you script it and coming out into any one of the supported writing formats. These are rasters. It's a satellite. This is what NASA uses to massage its satellite data, by the way. So we got a lot of data sources here, people. This isn't over. Okay, but we're going to talk today about Ogre. Ogre is the vector side. I happen to be using Postgres PostGIS. So that's the database that I'm going to show you the demo here. This is also Oracle Spatial. This is also some of the other, what is that company's name? ES something? Yeah, it talks to them too. And also some database standards.
Tiger.
Tiger, hey. Tiger, check. Okay, so configurable. This is Unix land. This is server side. This is industrial strength mapping. So we got all kinds of goodies you can throw in there on your favorite server. It keeps going. Okay. And it is heavily scriptable. This is essentially server-side data generation. So Python is the preferred language. There's Perl interfaces. There's some other languages too. Okay. Oh, I bet you I want to show. Oh, yeah. Why is it? Where's my note? Could you hand me my note? Just that thing. Just that one piece of paper. Thank you so much. Okay. Why is it that we care about all this stuff? Okay, because real geospatial data comes from all these different places. There is a ton of geospatial data out there. Now, I need to credit Mike Liebhold at the Institute for the Future in Palo Alto for this slide. Mike's a geohacker from way back, and he gave a presentation, and I took a picture with my camera, and this is his slide. Okay, but this basically shows the kind of level of detail. The other thing is that in the real world, you have data in different formats, right? And so you need to pull them in. Okay, so KML. Let's get back to KML. This is the very succinct, shall we say, man page for the KML driver for Ogre GDAL. This went final. This is in the 1.5 version of GDAL, which was shipped in December. And basically, the idea is that you can do a little bit of reading of KML to bring KML data sources in. These are vectors we're talking about, not raster. But mainly it's useful for writing. I can tell you that mainly it's useful for writing. Okay. So let's go to a little live data generation here. So what do we do? Okay, in our, okay, remember these are all the tables that are accessible on my local Postgres database right now. And it's basically doing by bounding box, and then for some of the really populated tables like aviation points, I also put a limit on it. So you say, like limit 100. So you say, so in SQL you say, you know, the intersection of the bounding box, which I get from Google Earth, automatically generated, and then I also say limit 100, so I don't get fire hose, you know, flooded, because there's just tons and tons of stuff. Now the nice thing is, you know, you zoom in. Oopsie. Oh, we'll get to that in a second. You zoom in somewhere. Come on. Hello. Okay, let's do that. You wait your obligatory 4 seconds for the network link to refresh. Get the little guys there. Does the query. Lots of data, right? So it's automatically, you know, it's that desirable property of, you know, you go in, you get lots of detail. You go out, you're not suffocated by screen confetti. All right. So we go back out. Okay, so why on earth, now Mano said a few important things about why you'd want dynamically generated KML in the first place, and I think there were some good points there. You get, when you're working with the database side, you get the power of SQL. Now there are people, SQL, you know, there are people who do it their whole life long, and there are people that are going, oh my God, what is that? But if you have large data sources, and you need to filter and sort and get things in order, it's doing some remarkable stuff for you. So let's try to do a couple things here. So here we are. One thing I can say just real quick. Here we're in SQL, you know, PostGIS. I'll show you, by the way, we're here in 823, running on a Mac. Geos, we have Geos installed, Proj 4, and some statistic stuff. How many Java topology suite people do we have in the? Okay, good, because I don't want, you know more than I do, okay? Geos is a library built on top of Java topology suite. It's C++. It allows you to do some very interesting things. Okay, Proj 4 is a fundamental standard in open source. Proj is basically saying when you have, you know, real maps are done in projections, because you just, that's the way it is. So Proj is a library that allows you to do arbitrary reprojection from one system to another. All these tools are built on top of Proj. Okay, and then PostGIS, let's see, let's try a couple things here. You can say select, I'm going off the script here. Okay, let's see. Let's just try something real simple. Some of these are points and some of these are polygon types. Essentially, a table has either all point or all polygon when you're here. So you say US SKUs. Hello. Trying that. Which one am I? I'm in EPA work. Let's see. Let's try GPX. Do not fail. There we go. Okay, so this is the inside. So I take a few fields here. I can say select as KML the geom. And I can also say, I don't know, name from GPX. You know, and then arbitrary, elaborate SQL. Okay, so the point here is that if I am a database client. Generally, humans aren't doing this. Generally, there's some middleware of some kind. So the point is that Postgres current versions have an as_KML built-in function. So I can say, select as_KML and get the snippet back. But then, just like Mano showed, some kind of a Python or Perl script that knows how to interface to the database and then wrap it up just the right way and hand it back as a full KML file. Well, that turns out to be, it's hard. It's work. So let's not do that. Let's be lazy. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to use a client that understands how to talk to Postgres. Which is Ogre to Ogre. It's the fundamental conversion tool for the Ogre component of GDAL that we talked about. Basically, you can say any arbitrary format in, any arbitrary format out. I'm going to say Ogre to Ogre, use the output format KML. I'm going to put it into a text file where I know where it is. And then I'm going to say the database source is Postgres, my database name. And don't pay attention to that one. That'll be the second. We're going to actually do a little reprojection just to show you can do it. There are folks that do this all day long. That's not me. Okay, but I do know how to do it. Just a little bit. We'll do that to show that it works. But let's do this second one. Okay, select things that are in a county with the name of Humboldt, and they are also, let's see, yeah, they intersect with the National Database of Protected Wilderness Areas. Okay. Okay, just did it. So we're going to look for the result in demo KML. So I happen to know where demo KML is. It's right there. And we're going to reload it, yes. We're going to turn off this other thing. And there it is. Okay, live demo. So I just did a query. I said take the county boundary of Humboldt and intersect it with a bunch of interesting geospatial types. Turns out that what we're dealing with here is point, polygon, multi-point, multi-polygon. In the fuller spec, there are some things about curves and other interesting types. It's not there yet. So basically some basic type. These are essentially all polygons that we just selected. Live generation of KML.
Can you copy and paste it so we can see what it looks like?
Oh.
The actual KML.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Or we could just, okay. We could do that. What do I say, copy?
Yeah.
And then I just go over here and sacrifice the chicken. Okay, so, oh yeah, and this is automatically, Ogre automatically put in as C data all the contents of the record. So we're just for free, we're essentially getting the contents of the record. And I believe that...
Is there a way to configure how they template it?
That, okay, basically there's a new rev that's being worked on now, and there's some changes, and this would be a good time to give your input on the list. Because they're making some changes right now. Right now, as far as the version that I have here on, no. And then, let's see.
So it basically wraps it up as a table in the description below.
Yeah, so let's do this, let's do this. Yeah, and so there you get in your balloon. That's, for free. We just got, it just basically dumped. We weren't able to select. It just gave us the whole contents of this. And in some databases, that can be a problem. Like you want to be able to filter it out. Okay. Feature.
Does it do any simplification of the polys for you?
Absolutely. You can get all Douglas Poiker on it. Absolutely. Let's see. So Feature Server also has some abilities that way. Okay, now the second one, canned demo I have here. Now we're going to say, we're just down here at the bottom. Ogre to Ogre, output KML into our known text file. Source is database, EPA work. The source, let's see, we're going to transform into EPSG 40 number 4326, and the source is a different EPSG code. So this is just to prove that we can do this. Oh, and by the way, we're going to select from this California Places clipped where names start with A. Okay, so I have database. I'm just sort of skimming the surface of this. I have Postgres tables with millions of entries in North America. I can slice and dice the whole day long. Okay, so we refresh demo. We're gonna get some white things. Here we go. Okay, I live in the East Bay. Berkeley's my home base. So I happen to know that the county of Alameda is going to be one of those things that's going to be listed because it starts with A, and it was in the place. And you see it's reprojected into the required 4326 for display in KML. Okay, any questions on that, what we just saw?
When you're parsing the data, and say if you serialized it, you can render in browser 2. I'm wondering about writing an actual, I have to embed something in that.
Writing a what?
I was thinking about writing in like a Flux or a Flash little applet that serves as a browser, and I could do that though, yeah.
Well, yeah, we're generating KML,
Yeah.
and we happen to be opening it in Google Earth.
Yeah.
So you can generate and
In any
do it,
browser-based
yeah,
thing,
consume
render,
it,
yeah.
consume
You
it
can
as you
have a
will.
local database where you can store that stuff and transform, yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
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 Okay, any other
Oh,
questions?
restrictions on the data use.
Data.
Is there any restrictions on the data usage for some of this mapping stuff? Besides the stuff over the NSA and stuff like that?
No restrictions on this data. Okay, another question? Any other?
Will this
Yes.
display maps?
Huh?
In maps? What if you try and load this in maps?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, as a matter of fact, that slide that didn't, as of a couple months ago, you just go to normal, plain old flat maps, and you give it a network visible KML URL, and you just say, open it up, boom, done. So all you have to do is configure on your server side so that you write to an HTTP visible KML result, and then on your flat maps, use that URL, boom, done. Yeah, back there?
Yeah, a couple weeks or 3 weeks ago, John Coyette was saying that he had some issues with the performance of PostGIS. That he thought there was maybe orders of magnitude, not one, but 2 or 3 difference in performance. Given that you're the PostGIS representative here, do you care to rebut that?
Might want to repeat the questions.
Oh, okay. So we're talking about performance for on the PostGIS side.
Versus Postgres.
Versus straight Postgres.
Oh, versus straight Postgres.
Yeah, which he was doing his map data management in.
Right. Okay. So there's one key trick that you must know if you are using PostGIS, and that is you must use spatial indexes on things that are being on columns that are being searched on. Spatial indexes are everything. So you say create index using GIST column name, and that creates the index. And if that's not present, which is a common beginning error, then you will definitely suffer.
He seemed to think it had something to do with the fact that a lot of the operators have been bound in through some, C language binding, and that, a call out to that was a possible cause of performance degradation.
Database performance is something they go on and on and on about. And it's just, if you get into query analyze and you start looking at like what they do, and you start to do, do that and test for yourself. Your mileage may vary.
No, I understood, but it is a question. Given that this looks very cool, if I were to think about putting this in a production system, I'd certainly want to go in with eyes wide open.
You can optimize your query. Check out query. What is it? Query plan. You look at the query plan and you see what the cost is on the different elements of your query.
And it should show up if it's buried inside the
and
CF
then you
record.
look and then you rearrange your query in certain ways, and you definitely use your indexes. I have a basic dual processor Linux box. I have 3 million entries, point data, and I do order by limit, and I browse with a normal map, and it's just, it takes
but
longer to get the tiles
3
than it
million
takes to get
isn't
the.
what I'm worried about. It's the 3 billion points that I might be wanting to put in.
If you have 3 billion points, then you're in a special category.
Yeah, so it's not the 3 million I'm worried about. Right, that'll work on my iPhone.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right, in the back.
Sorry if this is more rudimentary. For the back end, in terms of where you're getting the data from and the relationships you have with the different sources,
Yes.
is that all something that Google has relationships with those individual sources, or is that all open source and they're just real-time querying and building up their back-end database from?
I will defer to the Google representatives to speak on their behalf. However, I can tell you this, that the good news is this is open standards, open source. So these are compatible licenses, and they take great pains to make sure that everything's on the up and up. And I think that you will get good news if you look into that more carefully. Okay, I guess I'm done. Thanks so much.